Hello, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar about the Citizens New York Grant Program. This is a presentation only for our Six Celebrate groups. The Six Celebrate applications for 2025 are now open. If you know anyone who may be interested, please let them know. You can find out more information about the application and everything you need to do on our website, sixcelebrate.org. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. To me, you can email me, marbulu@htc.org. This webinar, excuse me, sorry. This webinar will be recorded and posted to our YouTube channel. You may also watch all of our previous preservation school classes, virtual tours, conference panels on our YouTube channel. I would like to thank the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs, City Council, and the New York State Council on the Arts for supporting Six to Celebrate. If you have any questions, you can add them to the chat and Carlos will address them at the end. And now I will hand it over to Carlos to lead the webinar. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you, Michelle, for the introduction. Let's get the show on the road, basically. So my name is Carlos Santiago. I am the Programs Associate here at Citizens Committee for New York City, or Citizens NYC for short. And I'm essentially here to tell you about our two main grant programs. We have the 2025 Community Leaders Grant and the 2025 Neighborhood Business Grant. So let's get the show on the road when it comes to the content here, but I want to just go through a very quick agenda. I'm going to go through a little bit of our history as well as what our grant making looked like in 2024. I will then transition into the real meat and potatoes of what's going to allow you to even apply for these opportunities in the first place. So I'm going to go into detail about the eligibility requirements. I will then transition into talking about the grant timeline. That particular part, I'm definitely going to ask everyone to pay as much attention as you can, because there are a lot of dates to really juggle, especially this year since we've made some changes from last year. So your attention is definitely going to be warranted for that part. So feel free to have a pen and pad on you just in case. And then I'll open the floor for any questions regarding the grants and also the timeline. So I'm going to open the floor there for that. Then I'll very quickly get through what our grant writing best practices are. So I'm going to give you tips on how to approach our specific application. And then I'll show you a sample application so that you get a really good idea of what it is that we want to see in a quality application. And I'm going to ask folks to interact and tell me what it did well and what it didn't do well. So let's get on to the next slide. So if you're not familiar, like I said, Citizens NYC is a grant-making organization. We have been around since 1975, and ever since we've been funding community projects in the 5 boroughs that are committed to helping and improving their community in some way, shape, or form. We were, like I said, founded in 1975, and we were essentially, created under the very real crisis that was taking place in New York City, where we were on the verge of declaring bankruptcy under the Mayor Abraham Beame administration. So there were a lot of program cuts and just cuts in general throughout the 5 boroughs that really negatively impacted communities across New York City. So it took our founder, Osborne Elliott, and Senator Jacob Javits to create Citizens NYC with the hope that New Yorkers will come together to try to help their neighbors, whether that is starting a food pantry and managing it, or managing a community garden, or putting on free programming for children and seniors, or having art mural projects at school. Whatever it might be, we might have a micro grant for it. And like I said, we've been doing this work since 1975. And we continue that legacy with our grant making in the Community Leaders Grant and Neighborhood Business Grant. So as it says on this slide here, last year we got 2,000 applications, so about 1,000 for each grant program last year, and that's typically the amount of applications that we get per year. It's about 2,000. Last year we awarded 200 community leaders grants and neighborhood business grant projects. So that was about 150 community leaders grant and about 50 neighborhood business grants that were given out last year. We typically give out 200 to 300 in total a year. That's what it's been looking like lately. We'll obviously try to get that up if we get more funding, but you can expect that range between 200 and 300 every year. Most of our applicants are volunteers, and that really applies to the community leaders grant. A lot of the folks that are applying are doing things out of the kindness of their heart. They're not necessarily nonprofits. They're just people on the ground doing grassroots work to help their neighbors. So over 60% of the folks that apply to our grant are volunteers. And of course, the projects that we fund are across all 5 boroughs. So we don't prioritize a borough over another. We truly want to get as many applications from all boroughs as we can. So that's what our grant making looks like from a bird's eye view. And now I'll get into the nitty gritty. So we'll start with the community leaders grant, and you should know that this is a grant for up to $5,000. And there's a couple criteria that you need to meet in order to apply. So you need to be within New York City. So you have to be in the 5 boroughs and serving people in the 5 boroughs, excuse me. And you have to be a group of 2 or more people. And this is what makes our grant amazing and accessible, is that you don't need to be a 501c3. You don't need to be a formally established organization of any kind. It can literally be you and a neighbor, you and a friend, you and a family member with an idea to help your community in some way, and you can apply for this grant. Most of those people that actually apply for our grant are typically folks that wouldn't be able to get funding through other means applying for other grants, right? So that's what makes Citizens NYC unique. Because we are trying to target people doing the work at the grassroots level and trying to empower their work. You don't need to have a 501c3, like I said. However, if you do have a 501c3, you have to make sure that your budget is under $250,000. Going back to my point where we want to be targeting people at the grassroots level. Schools can also apply. As I've, gone around the city talking about our grant, like I encounter teachers everywhere communicating all of the needs and projects that they have in mind for their school. So, always encourage teachers and folks involved in schools to apply. Of course, your project must demonstrate an element of community engagement, a community project of some sort, and that can look like many different things. So, really, we run the gamut of the types of projects that we fund. Like we'd fund a community garden, but we can also fund a kayaking program that's communicating to us that they want to make waterways more accessible to New Yorkers. So really, we are not an issue-based organization. We just want to hear what it is that you're seeing in your community day to day that you want to impact in some way, and communicate to us how that project is going to do something positive for your community. And your community can be your borough, it can be your block, it could be your school, whatever it might be. So that's the most important part there, is we need to know that you have some kind of community project or initiative that you're doing, or planning to do a community project or initiative. You don't have to be in a position where, does this mean I need to have experience in, doing community work in order to apply for this? No, you can quite literally start planning your stuff out now and start jotting down your ideas of what you might want to do. So it doesn't have to be something that's already been existing. You can apply for multiple projects. So definitely keep that in mind, that you can apply for multiple projects. However, you have to make sure that if you are doing that, that you'd submit multiple separate applications, I should say. So if you have six project ideas that you want to apply for, make sure to submit, six separate applications. And really, I'm saying six, but because you literally can. If you have six ideas, apply for the six ideas. But we don't have a limit on that end. But just like I said, keep in mind, try to apply separate applications for each project that you're interested in applying for. The no-nos here is fraternal and partisan organizations are ineligible, and chapters or affiliates of a larger organization are also ineligible for the grant. So I hope a few of you here check off those boxes and can apply. And now I'll move into the neighborhood business grant, which is for small businesses in New York City. Also, for up to $5,000, you have to have 10 or fewer employees, and you have to be in operation at least 2 years. That first dark bullet point, must demonstrate community engagement, is the most important part about the neighborhood business grant. That's what makes our grant unique, is that we're not just funding any business. We're funding businesses that are very intentional about impacting and giving back to their community in some way. And that can look like many different things. I've encountered fitness businesses in Staten Island that said, well, I don't know whether or not I have a community project. And after a really good conversation, I found out that this person is not only mentoring youth and trying to get them to meet their fitness goals for free, I might add, but she's also created programming for these students that like revolves around college prep. And she's doing this out of the kindness of her heart. It's costing money, it's costing energy, and she loves doing that work. And I said, hey, you can apply for a neighborhood business grant because this is what we're all about. You're giving back to your community because you see this need of, you want to help youth, and because a lot of youth don't know how to approach working out, but also seeing the very real disparities in her community, that some people are able to get college prep and some aren't. So that's just one example. Another example is of a business that told us, their block was ridiculously dirty. So they gathered as many people from their neighborhood as they could to clean the block regularly, and also create murals for the other businesses on the block to make them look more attractive. That's yet another example. And I can go on and on, just due to our grantee partners who do amazing work. But to my point, it's really getting to the heart of demonstrating that you have a community project of some sort. Funds cannot be used for overhead, so rent, utilities, things of the sort cannot be used for, the funds cannot be used for that. It has to be used for the community project. When you're applying, you have to provide us an expected current budget and proof of business. And keep in mind that you can only submit one application a year for the neighborhood business grant. And now the dates, very important. Definitely take notes. We opened our first grant cycle on November 4th, and the deadline is February 7th. So that's fast approaching. February 7th is the first deadline. And the folks that apply by February 7th will definitely hear back from us about grant decisions in April 2025. Those that end up being awarded will actually know, will get their funds, I should say, in May 2025. Something to note is, if you are one of the folks that becomes a Citizens NYC grantee partner, and let's say you applied by February 7th, you got the grant and you get the money in May. The second you get the money, that's when your grant timeline starts. So you have 1 full year to complete your project. You have from May 2025 to May 2026 to complete your project. In April 2026, we're going to send you a final report form. And in that final report, we're going to need to know how your project went and how it impacted your community. We want to know your successes, your challenges, any adjustments you have to make. and whether or not you spent all of the grant funds. So, you have a full year, May 2025 to May 2026, and you get the final report in April 2026, so we can know how things went. So this is the first grant cycle. Deadline is fast approaching, so please, plan accordingly. But let's say you don't make it to apply for the February 7th deadline. That is okay. After February 7th, we will close both the community leaders and neighborhood business grant. However, we will open it again for the second cycle, which begins May 5th. So we reopen things May 5th, and the deadline is going to be for this particular cycle, July 25th. And those that apply in that window will know about their status in September 2025. And the funds will be distributed to those that are awarded October 2025. So same thing applies from the first cycle. You have 1 year to complete your project from October 2025 to October 2026, with September 2026 being the month we send the final report. So that's pretty much what I got for you with the cycles as well as the eligibility requirements. Please feel free to put questions in the chat before I move on to grant writing best practices, and I'll show you a quick sample application question. So I'll give folks a couple minutes to write anything. And if you can't think of anything now, it's okay. I will give you my contact info a little later in the presentation. So if you can't think of anything right now, that's okay. All right, I'll move on. Please feel free to put stuff in the chat. It's perfectly okay. I will get to it as we keep moving along. So grant writing best practices. I always love telling people that we're not expecting people to be grant writers. At the end of the day, grant writing is a very specialized skill that people literally get certificates and degrees in. And since we're targeting people at the grassroots level, it would be absurd of us to require people on the ground to have this very specific skill. So we're really not asking you to, have the best grammar or the best spelling or anything of the sort. We, at the end of the day, want to know what your project is and how it's impacting your community. My biggest piece of advice is write about your project like you're talking to a friend or a colleague or a family member. You'd be surprised, having conversations about your project with other people actually helps you with the writing process. So I really recommend, once you get your hands on the application itself, like feel free to have conversations with people, regarding each question and see what happens. Like, you'd be surprised how you can be more engaged in what it is that you want to write just by having conversations. So please feel free to do that, because writing is very difficult. And we want you to write, obviously, but we also want you to write with intent and want you to write understanding that we want to see what your project is going to look like. So, there's going to be opportunities in the application to talk about your group or your business. Like, there are a lot of people that, have really amazing stories as to why they started their business or why they started their community group to address a particular issue in their neighborhood. So tell us a little bit about that and how you formed and what your mission and goals are. you know, Most importantly, tell us how you will carry out your project. I can't tell you how many times I've read applications over the 2+ years that I've been here where, someone is very well intentioned in saying, hey, I am detecting a lot of issues with food insecurity in my neighborhood, and I want to do something about it. I'm passionate about this. But a lot of times folks don't tell us how they're going to contribute in ameliorating the issue of food insecurity, right? So give us a good plan of like what it is that you're going to do at the end of the day and what you're going to do with the $5,000. If you have workshops, tell us about the workshops that you are going to offer, how many of them, and how it's going to help people and impact them in a positive way. Whatever it might be, we just want to see details. Tell us who you're working with in the community and who you want to serve. You know, a lot of people cannot, well, I would say all of the folks can't do any of this work alone. So there are people in the community that may be doing similar work or doing other work that may complement what you want to do. So we want to know who you're in communication with. And if you're not in communication with folks yet, that's that's okay. We want to know, we want you to do a little research and figure out like who you could possibly like partner with or possibly like, talk to in the community that can help move your project forward. And of course, tell us who you want to serve. Like if you are serving, school children, seniors, tell us who it is you're going to serve, and tell us how you communicate with the community you serve. So social media, snail mail, communicate that, like how you're engaging folks outside of just the events, but how you're reaching them to get them into the spaces that you want them to be in. Give us a timeline of how your project will be carried out and show us your itemized budget. Those last 2 points are actually in the application, so you don't have to give us any crazy spreadsheet of any kind. That's not the case at all. All of that is can be found in the application itself. So that's pretty much what I have for you here, just in terms of approach and what we want to see. And I'll pivot into looking at a sample application question. I see that there is something in the chat here. Oh, Jose, thank you. I appreciate you. I will ask folks to participate and let me know what you think in the chat, what this particular application question does well. And you can also communicate to us what it doesn't do as well. Because at the end of the day, we're not expecting people to have perfect, perfect applications. We just want you to see something that is effective and is telling us what their goals are. So I'm gonna read this out loud because I know some folks are on their phone, and then we can discuss in the chat. So this is just one of 4 to 5 questions on the application. And the reason why I'm showing you this particular question is because we believe at Citizens NYC that this is like one of the most important questions in the application because it's getting to the heart of what you are going to do with your project. So I'm going to read this aloud and I want to hear from y'all. So in at least 150 words, provide a detailed project description. LES Fitness empowers formerly incarcerated individuals through fitness training, professional certification programs, and employment opportunities while fostering community reintegration through initiatives like coat, turkey, and toy drives, as well as local cleanups. Our core project involves visits to facilities like Rikers Island and juvenile detention centers. There, we will teach incarcerated individuals the skills needed to become certified group fitness instructors. By providing professional training that opens career pathways upon release, we aim to transform lives through fitness while simultaneously promoting physical and mental well-being for those facing the challenges of re-entry. At LES Fitness, we believe that everyone deserves a second chance, and we are dedicated to creating pathways for sustainable success. Beyond providing employment opportunities, LES Fitness wants to support formerly incarcerated people by connecting them with the community once their sentences are complete. We are firm believers that the best way to feel connected to the community you come from is to get involved in neighborhood efforts to impact it in a positive way. We want people connected with LES Fitness to give back and be exposed to the various ways that they can support others. In our neighborhood in the Lower East Side, we plan to organize various drives that will give away coats, turkeys, and toys, which will connect our LES Fitness workers and clients with people who are in need. We also want to organize community cleanups in order to inspire our workers and clients to be better connected to their blocks and their cleanliness. So that's pretty much the gist of what we want to see in a good application response for this question. Like I said, there are other questions. I will post a link to the applications in a second. On the pages where it'll have the button to apply. If you scroll down, you'll actually see a link where you can click on it and be able to see the entire sample application responses, the narrative questions. So definitely take advantage of that. But yeah, folks, please let me know what you think in the chat. I can always start. Yeah, this really gets to the point. It's telling me exactly what it is that they're going to do. They're going to train these folks. Yeah, they're gonna. What I see a question: are check-ins with applicants to see how they're implementing their plans? Not necessarily. No, we. That's why we send the final reports like before the year's up. We are more than happy to accept invites um, from people that have events and things of the sort, but we don't necessarily check in with people regarding their projects until the final report is sent before the year's up. At the end of the day, like we're big proponents of trust-based philanthropy, and we're gonna trust you to do the work. We're not gonna baby people through this process. So we keep it relatively stress-free on that front. Yeah, so let's do yeah, very good question. Jose, great. I'm glad. Um, but yeah, I really don't have much else to say in terms of like this particular example because really it just gets to the point. They are telling me exactly what it is that they're doing. They're training folks to try to get jobs after they serve their sentences, and they're also making an effort to have them basically be ingrained in their community through them participating, the incarcerated individuals like engaging in community work. So it gets to the point. It really does. But that's pretty much all I have for you. Please feel free to take down my email. I'll put that in the chat right now. Um, and also here are the links to the Community Leaders Grant and Neighborhood Business Grant. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. I am offering folks the opportunity to reach out to me if they need feedback on their applications. However, uh, I'm gonna need the draft of what you were writing, and I need to be contacted before you hit submit. So complete as much of the application as you possibly can and send me that draft, and then we'll schedule a one-on-one Zoom meeting just so I can give you my feedback in real time. So um always feel free to reach out. I've been asking folks to avoid reaching out by the last week because things get very, very crazy. I end up getting hundreds of messages across two inboxes. So things will be certainly hectic that last week. But, you folks are running businesses, y'all are doing amazing things out there. So if it happens to be the last week, so be it. Just be a little patient with me. I'm pretty good at getting two people within a day or two. But let's say, for example, it takes me over 3 days to get you. Don't feel ashamed to send a follow-up email. That's perfectly okay. It helps your chances of me getting to you when things are hectic because it puts it right at the top of my inbox. So, yeah, that's pretty much all I have for you. If any of y'all would be so kind to scan the QR code just to tell me how I did. Did I talk too much? Did I talk too little? Was the content effective? Feel free to be as honest as you can because we look at this data pretty regularly and we make adjustments accordingly. So that's all I got for you folks, unless anybody has any questions.
Thank you so much. This was great. This is very informative, and I really do hope that many of you, or all of you, really apply if you can. And yes, as you've seen, it's recorded, so I'll also share it with the rest of our Six to Celebrate groups, and hopefully some of them will apply. This is fantastic.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you. I love doing this work. So it's always amazing to get to present this information to people because people are already doing the work and they've never heard of this opportunity before. So it's always awesome, like at least for me as being the presenter, to be the one to give you the good news. So
Yeah,
always a
absolutely.
pleasure.
It's very accessible, which is very nice.
Yeah, that's really the goal. Like we talk about this intentionally as a team of how are we going to make this as accessible to folks as possible. So I'm glad that rings true as we presented.
Yeah, or I mean, yes, that is the impression I'm getting. When you guys actually fill out the
Awesome.
application, let us know.
Exactly.
Thank you so much, Jose.
Thank you,
Yes,
George. Thank you, Jose.
yes, thank you, George. Thank you so much, Carlos. Thank you, everyone, for attending. This was fantastic. I will hope to see you all at a future event. Oh, Carolyn's asking if you have a phone number.
I'll put it in the chat. I highly recommend reaching out to me via email first, because I can be in a meeting or I can be out and about in the five boroughs, doing presentations like this one. So, highly recommend emailing first. But if you got a call, you got a call. Here's the number.
Okay, I'll give you a second to write that down.
Hmm.
Okay, great. Thank you very much again, everyone. And yes, we will see you soon. Have a good day.
Have a good one, y'all.